Here it is. Okay. Uncle Joe helped Miss Ruth Davis decorate the temple and make the beautiful bridal canopy under which we stood. It was a very pretty and impressive picture, everyone said, as the two couples marched up the aisles. Abram was so nervous that when he held the silver goblet of wine for me to take a sip, I had to put my hand over his to steady it. What's significant here is the absence of Jewish words. We have temple, not shul, bridal canopy, not chuppah. We have silver goblet of wine, not kiddush cup. The only Hebrew on the wedding invitation that's pictured in this book is in the name of the temple, that's B'nai Israel, and no Hebrew adorns the gravestones of family members. The Jewish community flourished, though, with temple membership hitting a peak membership of 141 households in 1906. In 1907, though, a boll weevil infestation hit Jewish cotton merchant population particularly hard, and like many of their non-Jewish parts, many of them moved to the city. In 2002, the Natchez Temple had 13 members altogether. In contrast, Helen Jacobus Abt grew up in larger cities. She lived in Atlanta, Tallahassee, Tampa, St. Louis, and Miami. But although the cities were larger than Natchez, the Jewish lives of these two women were similar. Like Clara, Helen identifies strongly with Judaism, calling herself a woman in Israel. Still, she describes her wedding day with the bridesmaids carrying bouquets of, quote, Easter lilies and the orchestra playing the Lohengrin wedding march. She glories in the early days of her marriage, describing them, quote, as strings of pearls to me, my rosary. She mentions Halloween, Christmas, Santa Claus, and Easter. They eat lobster. She occasionally does refer to Rosh Hashanah, but she more often says the New Year. Helen's diary is filled with literary allusions, including one from the Hebrew Union prayer book. This just apparently from memory. But more often she refers to New Testament literary sources and other poetry and so on. Like Clara, Helen's family participates in both civic organizations such as the Elks, Freemasons, and Rotaries, and Jewish ones, Sisterhood, National Council of Jewish Women. Like Clara, Helen's temple chose to affiliate with the fledgling Reform movement, and their way of life was a highly assimilated one, but they also had a separate standard club, a social country club. Rosenbaum, the grandson who writes in this Apt's diary edits it, he writes, quote, she saw herself as a Southern American who happened to be Jewish, decidedly not as a Jew who was merely living in the South. Her writing does show religious identity, is filled with references to God, spelled out, unlike the Orthodox practice, such as thank God, God bless him, God knows, and so on. But mixed with these are familiar Southernisms. Her brother is called Bubba, sister Helen is Sis, and she sings Dixie. She berates herself for, quote, acting ugly and delights in meeting a, quote, real sure enough count. And says bless his heart to her husband when he gives her yet another bottle of perfume that she doesn't use. The third example is a literary one from a book called The Ladies Auxiliary. This is not a diary or a memoir, but a novel written by Tova Mervis, who grew up in Memphis's Orthodox Jewish community. Published in 1999, the book caused quite a stir in Memphis as it exposed politics and unrest in a private and tight community. The community is in stark contrast to Clara's Natchez or Helen's Atlanta. The core of the community is descended from Yiddish-speaking Eastern European Jews. These people did not migrate from New York, and in the novel, the origins of the community are a sense of mystery, but there's strong identification with Memphis, and this is a quote, because no one knew why Orthodox Jews settled in Memphis while everyone else headed to New York or Chicago. The community seems dropped like manna from heaven. We saw ourselves as the Jerusalem of the South, our families part of a chain of Jewish Memphians that would extend into the future forever. There are a number of indications of the language in the Ladies Auxiliary, and you have these on your handout, and I'll only look at a couple of examples here. One is a set of terms referring to holidays, prayers, ritual. Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are in there, but you get some of the more obscure holidays mentioned as well, such as Sukkot, Purim, Pesach, referred to by its Hebrew name rather than Passover, and they go to shul, not to temple or synagogue. There are many words referring to food and ritual, such as the separate trafe, pot, and knife one of the women keeps in her freezer. This is so she can eat shrimp in secret. The only way she strays from the Jewish culture. There are lots of brand name identity things, and these are things that used to be there. In fact, I called Toga Mervis last week and asked her if Kahn's Kosher Mart really exists. Still in Memphis, apparently closed about 10 years ago, or the one it was framed after. But things like a Matashevitz gefilte fish, or Miller's cheese, or Kedem wine, these would be things that people would know to be kosher. And the symbols of OU, OK, or star K on boxes to indicate that these are kosher. They're on many of the foods that everybody eats, but these are codes to the Orthodox community that these are available. There are other expressions such as new and names of people and so on. The terms Jewish geography, I can't go into that now, but it exists. And bless his memory, which reminds us of some of the sayings in some of the other books. What struck me were some of the combinations of Jewishisms and Southernisms, and especially in the foods where you have challah fried chicken, 2 kugels, and a dish of her favorite hush puppies, or barbecue beef ribs, sliced kishka noodle kugel, and fried chicken, green beans, almondine, and black-eyed peas. But you also have these kind of statements such as visitors commented that they expected Elvis Presley to ride from underneath the bima, and Shabbat Shalom, y'all. There is a clear indication of something against assimilation.